Welcome to season 2 of Malevolent Autopsy. I'm your host, Queen. I use she, her pronouns. And before we go any further than that, I'm just going to warn you, this show contains major spoilers for everything in Malevolent as of the date this episode is published. We're going to dissect the patron votes that drive the story week to week. So grab your scalpel and let's begin the autopsy. I am here with a lovely guest co-host today, my friend Vol Control. Welcome, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell me what part of Arthur's body you are in control of?
Howdy, hello. I'm Vol Control. I use he, him pronouns. And tonight I am controlling Arthur's limbic system.
Ooh, and for those who, and I know you haven't, for those who haven't played Disco Elysium to death and don't know what the limbic system is, what is that?
It is the part of your brain that is the emotional nervous system. It regulates your emotions, memory, and behaviors.
I love that. That's fantastic. And what a load you've chosen to take on for Arthur.
He needs a helping hand, man. He's going through it. He's really going through it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And would you like to read out the chapter summary?
I would love to. This was chapter 251, the first part of part 51. The chapter starts and we are immediately in it. The fire is dying, somebody is dying, and Lilith is coming for our asses. Arthur seems ready to get it over with. When we finally get our bearings and learn that it's been 2 weeks, we flash back to 3 days into the journey. Already the food is spoiled, one of the horses is down, and now a wheel has broken on the wagon. As Antoine opens the back of the wagon to fetch the replacement wheel, Arthur and John have a little looky-loo for the Blackstone. Vale calls Arthur's ass out immediately and impresses upon him the awful power of the stone. Just before they're ambushed and Vale is shot with an arrow. End flashback, and Lilith is asking about the Blackstone and whether or not Arthur fulfilled Sir Vale's dying wish.
Yeah, so huge stuff in this chapter. I feel like this is like one of the best examples of hitting the ground running I can think of.
Absolutely. This is, classic in media res, with just on top of that, the non-linear storytelling, which I just love.
Yeah, Seer of Time says, I honestly adored being thrown into the deep end this chapter. If this part is truly going to be entirely told through flashbacks, I am so hyped. Unique framing references are my jam. Sorry,
yes.
Unique framing devices are my jam. Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I think everybody loves a good flashback. But I'm excited, especially to be voting and framing the votes in a different way. I'm so used to the vote having an immediate consequence, but really what Harlan has said is like, look, he makes it out alive. At this point, you can't kill him with the answer to this question. Sure, the answer to this question could lead to his death, but he's not going to die right now.
Right. Like at the current moment, he is not dead.
Right. I love it. And yeah, Roses of Envy says, us having no context to this vote really felt like a curveball compared to the past few votes we've had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mizra says, we get the highlights of their journey and the important moments without actually going through 2 weeks of journey with them. Yeah, and I know that some might be disappointed, but for me, that's just a bonus. I mean, the fact that so much happened off screen, not only does that mean, for me, I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of surprises in store, because there can be a lot of things that you pull out of your back pocket, like, oh, they talked about that off screen. Or,
right.
That plan. I keep going back to season 4 and how Arthur made plans without me is how I like to frame it, because I was so shocked that he was capable of making decisions that I didn't know about. And I'm excited for more of that.
Yeah, that was a real shock, because it was the first time that that's ever happened. And I was wondering how Harlan was going to deal with writing a lengthy journey. I was wondering how he was going to make that interesting. And I didn't even consider this option, and it's just brilliant.
Yes. Now, I definitely want to go back to this. So I'm going to make this comment because I want to acknowledge how important it is. Maya.exe says, also, Lilith asking us directly, no Booth John, I got chills. But briefly, I will just say, to talk about it in a minute, there was no Booth John giving us our options for this vote. It's very traditional. It's normal for Booth John not to appear at the beginning of a part because there's not a choice that we have to have his judgment about yet. But usually the outro has him being like, here's the summary of the episode and the choice is simple, and do you do good or not do good or whatever. And where I was very used to that comforting presence of Booth John giving me my options, and he was not present. Somebody else was. So that was incredibly cool.
My notes literally say, no, BJ, Scratch has taken over the recording booth once more.
Yeah, there's been some historic incidences where Booth John has not been the person to give options. And I think it's worth noting that, first of all, Booth John does not appear whenever Kane is in the narrative. When he's been in episodes with speaking lines or he's about to show up, Booth John is mysteriously absent. That sometimes is because it aligns with the tradition of like the beginning or end of a part, but there were occasions where that was not the case and we did not get a vote, or Kane presented a question to us directly where his question was the ending of the chapter, and so we didn't get a Booth John. But it's still very notable to me that he was not the person to close. And then we also have all of the Butcher episodes, of course, because it was told from a different perspective. And then we have the other Vanguard votes.
Right. And the Nightmare.
Yeah, and the Nightmare. So, like, really historically, the only people who have replaced Booth John have been the Vanguard and Scratch. And here we are again with quote-unquote Scratch. And we have had our choices kind of commandeered.
Yeah. But it's okay. Hydra says that BJ's just on vacation in Miami, and Bird says that he's kayaking. I'm sure he's just taking a well-deserved vacation. If Harlan won't take a vacation, at least Booth John can take a vacation, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Autumn says, yeah, Queen, can I please tell you about my crack theory that has actual evidence? Booth John is a part of the King in Yellow that somehow touched the Greystone and got Kane's reality-hopping knowledge, but has none of the power, so he just narrates and watches and can be booted out of the job by those more powerful than him. I love all of the crack Booth John theories.
That's great.
I think it's really cute and fun. I love that. Yeah, Mizra says usually whenever Arthur encounters another eldritch god like the King, Horig, and Scratch, Booth John goes missing or glitches, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the episode that was absolutely wild.
Yes.
Some of our notes absolutely overlap, too.
Yes, they're like the exact same. I mean, just right out the gate, it's so atmospheric, and I didn't really pick this up the first time around, but some people have mentioned that it seemed like things were a little tense between John and Arthur.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like they were both tense and both just like girding their loins for what's to come. But when I listened to it again, I felt like I did kind of get this note of bitterness from Arthur. And again, that could be directed at Lilith, but...
No, I totally get it, because what perked my ears was I can hear. And whenever Arthur gets in a mood, he tries to, like, point out to John, you don't need to describe sounds to me, you idiot. I can still hear. And, like, John's like, I'm just trying to be a good narrator, okay?
Yeah, no, definitely. He gets snippy.
Yeah, I think it could be either one. I think it could just be the tension between them, or, you know, what I think is more likely is that they disagree on how this... I'm convinced this is a trap, but how this trap has been laid, I think maybe there's a lot of tension about, you know, how they did it or if they should even be doing it. One of them has reservations, something like that, and they've been arguing about this previously, so maybe that's the tension, that's the argument that came up. But I did get that.
I mean, leading up to this, they have been somewhat in disagreement about who to turn over the Blackstone to, or whether to hold out hope for the secret third option. And so, yeah, I definitely think that there's a possibility that they're still at odds, or, you know, have reached different conclusions about what their options are. But I did hear somebody, I have it somewhere in my notes, somebody mentioned that they wonder if during these 2 weeks, John has had to come clean about some of the stuff that happened in the dark world.
Yeah, yeah.
And Arthur's like upset about that, or thinks that that's like clouding John's judgment or something.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to read a couple of comments here because they get to a thing I wanted to talk about that I know that you have in your notes too. First of all, Key Raven says, I adore how jaded Arthur has been this season. He's so done. Yes, we love a
Yes,
jaded,
yes.
completely done Arthur. Roses of Envy. They were tense. I personally think it's because they're stressed. There's something there, but I'd love it to be a trap because his little come on, when Lilith was getting closer. And like that, for me, that come on was so, I don't know, there's just something about it that makes me think there's something up their sleeves. Maybe it's not as straightforward as a trap, but maybe it's like they've been trying to contact her, or for some reason, like, I don't know. I just feel like there's something there in those little come ons.
Yeah, I loved those. There's the delivery, the like tone, the tension of it was so good. And I mean, honestly, like my first impression was that, again, that Arthur's just done. He wants to rip off the Band-Aid. He wants to get this over with. But
Yeah.
I do think that that combined with the fire, it's not here for comfort line, like there's something going on here.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I know this really isn't anything. I know this isn't what the point of it was, but that did make me remember of Malum and how he had thought the fire was lit by a child because of Pharaoh's spirit and all of that. I'm wondering if maybe, I don't know if Malum's whole thing is that area is of his protection or what, but I thought it would be an interesting twist if this was some kind of attempt to draw him out.
Ooh, interesting.
Just because, like, the fact that the fire wasn't meant for comfort, then what was it meant for? Like, what do you
Right.
need it for then?
Oh, that's very interesting. I hadn't considered the Malum angle. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. The other thing is Shakespeare mention. I don't know very much about Shakespeare, but you do. So tell me all about it.
So Queen left me alone for all of 20 minutes, and I wrote about 200 words about.
Holy
I had to put it in a comment in the doc because
I can see that. Oh my God. I took a nap.
So I don't know why I hadn't looked into this earlier, but "Hell is empty and the devils are here" is a quote from Shakespeare's The Tempest. So just a brief overview about The Tempest, because I wasn't super familiar. I haven't actually read it for, you know, front to back. I haven't seen it, and so I had to do a little bit of research, and I did a little bit of looking into the specific lines that are part of the scene that this line comes from. So, The Tempest is kind of a Monte Cristo-esque story where a character has his position usurped and is exiled, and then concocts a sophisticated plot to bring revenge on those who wronged him and their arguably innocent kin. He kicks off his plan by commanding a spirit in his servitude to bring a terrible storm and shipwreck his brother and the magistrates who were responsible for his exile. So the line, "Hell is empty and the devils are here," is said by the first man who jumped ship, Ferdinand. So when Ariel, the spirit who set the ship on fire, recounts this to Prospero, the guy who was in exile, he responds, "That's my spirit," in praise to Ariel. Given that things seem tense with Arthur and John, I wonder if this phrase comes to mind to Arthur because he considers John to be one of the devils here.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I was reading some synopses, and in the like final act of the play, Prospero swears that if he is victorious in his revenge, he will free the spirit that he is bound to him, this Ariel spirit, saying, "I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book."
Ugh.
What? What?
Fascinating.
So, I don't know if we're reading too much into this, but Those things really stuck out to me.
I mean, yeah, we always are. And that is definitely a strange coincidence. I will say that. I think it might be if Arthur is considering John as quote unquote one of the devils there, it might not just be a straightforward reading of that concept. It may be more like, I have one on my side too. Kind of the vibe of, I'm going to fight fire with fire. I mean, we don't know what took place in these. It was over 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks and a couple of days, I think. Because he says that Lilith has been taunting them and torturing them for 2 weeks, but that she attacked on their third day, I think.
Correct.
So I think it's very much like, we don't know what John was talking about with Arthur, not just on these 2 weeks, but in Castle Carringford and the time that they took to recover. And they read books, that they had that experience of being able to get Yorick adjusted to people, I guess. So that was cool. I think there is something there, but I don't know. I think we're gonna get more clues. I really hope that the next chapter we get more weird tidbits like that. I mentioned to Vol when we first listened to the episode that we had the code phrase from Invictus. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
In the fell clutch of circumstance.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So they once had a code word that they were going to say in the fell clutch of circumstance, and this sounds very much like a code word that Arthur is trying to signal. I'm very interested to see if that was supposed to be some dramatic code phrase. I think that would be
interesting. Cool. Yeah, that would be really cool. And thank you to everyone in the chat who appreciated my red string Shakespeare theory. I got really excited.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. Okay. So, do we think that... I mean, we know that Lilith is responsible for the horse going lame and the food spoiling.
Yeah, Fish mentioned above that she said she didn't attack them, which...
Right.
I wondered if maybe she's splitting hairs and being like, I didn't fire that arrow. And it's like, yeah, bitch, but you, made that happen.
Yeah. I think that she is in on way more than she's going to admit to. I think she's playing around with him. She knew that he was going to attribute that to her, regardless of whether or not she was responsible. So, who knows? I do think it's interesting that she chose to come to him as Scratch. She gave him, would you prefer this undeniably beautiful woman, which I'm so happy about. I love that Lilith is undeniably beautiful.
Yes, that's awesome.
She gave him an option and he's like, I don't care. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, he doesn't care. He's blind, Lilith.
Yes,
girl.
Rebecca just said that. Being hot doesn't work on him. He's blind.
Seduction can't work on me. I'm blind. Yeah, I love that. I want to say, the sound cues for everything in this chapter were so pretty and spooky and variable. There was so much variety in all of the sound cues, like the sharp stings and the kind of discordant sounds. I would love to hear Roses of Envy talk again. We're going to have to plan an episode again where we check in with Roses of Envy to talk about, music and sound and everything like that. I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, I loved the Queen of the Night imagery, and that was not just John's descriptions as Lilith is approaching them, but also the soundscaping felt like it was adding to that atmosphere.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I loved the kind of squeaky notes. So that was cool. And then I also wrote down Antoine is shockingly sweet and loyal all throughout. I was really expecting Antoine to turn around on me and, I don't know, for us to hear that he was a jerk in the time skip or something. But he's just so sweet.
And he's so optimistic. He's the one who's no matter what, we'll make it through. If a wheel falls off, we'll brace it. If it bends, we'll bend it back. And I'm like, oh, sweet summer child.
Oh, baby, you have not been through the horrors yet.
But he has. I mean, he traveled through the Goatswood by himself. And that was a big point that Arthur or John were alone. He traveled through that alone.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely nothing to sneeze at. He's obviously very strong.
But I also notice that
Hold on, there's been a meme. Oh my God. Okay. It's a Hunger Games meme. And somebody saying, look at them, they're emotionally attached to the horse. And then it's Harlan as Jon Snow, and he goes, I want him dead.
You know what?
Yeah,
Like husband, like wife, because Joe is notorious for killing off familiars in Dice Shame.
there were multiple horses. Maybe one of them is still fine. One of them is fine, and because we need to keep one to, yeah, we don't know. Jaegerman Jensen says they didn't confirm which horse, and I'm choosing to believe John Wayne is fine.
Oh no, Hydras points out Arthur did say our horse.
Stop it. Stop it. Anyway.
One of the other things that I noticed about Surveil's interactions with Antoine is he keeps like bossing him around and dismissing him or not filling him in on the full story. This has happened more than once now, and I just find it interesting that they have that kind of dynamic, considering the fact that Surveil and Antoine are both trusted friends of Everard.
Yeah, it's very clear that they don't see each other on the same level. But then again, Antoine sees himself below everybody. I've noticed Antoine is very, like, milord to absolutely everybody. So maybe that is just kind of something that Vale is used to. And, you know, I think maybe everybody treats Sir Vela with a lot of respect and a title, whereas Antoine is just used to kind of being beneath.
Yeah. No, that's very fair.
So the other thing I wrote down that I wanted to talk about along this line is that I love how Vale just like lets nothing get past him. He's just like, dude, we just talked about this. you cannot really think that I don't see what you're trying to do. Arthur,
like,
come on,
you are not
buddy.
subtle. You are not subtle.
Yeah, and then I also wrote down Vale is so trusting of Everard. Both he and Antoine seem to be so loyal. And then I wonder how deep these relationships run to Everard. I just have to wonder how, like, Vale gives the vibe of a knight sworn to a king. He's just so trusting in Everard and everything that he's trying to do. And it's just very interesting that keeps coming up. And I wonder if that loyalty is going to show through in our vote in what Vale's last dying wish could have possibly been.
Yeah, like, just what the context, like, we have no idea what his dying wish could have been. And I think that unless it was bury me in a ditch by the side of the road, I'm not sure we had time for anything, but we'll get into that.
I also wrote down that I loved Battle Ready John screaming, "Move, Arthur!"
Hold on. Before we get there, can we just talk about the fact that Arthur was somehow able to hold up a side of this wagon with his little noodle arms? I'm sorry. That took... You know what? That was the moment of I couldn't suspend my disbelief anymore. No, I'm joking, but...
No, what if Arthur had a fucking baller routine on the road? What if Arthur is now Swolfer?
What? No, Swolfer is not real. He can't hurt me.
What if Arthur is like bulked up and has a six-pack and everything?
No, Seer of Time agrees with me. Seer of Time says, preach Vol, that man is malnourished, and I don't think you can fix that with just a week of Alia's healing and soup.
Are you kidding me? No, okay, but Sir Vale must have a really good workout routine, and you know that he would have pulled Arthur up onto that. He's got his, like, giant bottle of yield protein powder, and in the morning they, like, do bicep curls and shit. Arthur could be...
It's been a bonding experience. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and so that's
absolutely.
why we totally did fulfill his dying wish, because they're brothers. They're brothers in the bulk now, you know?
They're brothers in the Iron Temple.
Yep.
Fuck, okay. So I have a few other notes here that I just want to run through briefly. I'm saving this specific thing for last because I know that I will be unable to see anything in chat once I say it. So I'm going to skip that one for right now. So, Arthur, what the fuck are you doing saying you can't just like daddy? What the fuck are you doing talking like that
What
to
a
Lilith?
line. What a
Why?
line. Because Arthur gets snippy. He gets snippy when he's stressed. He gets bitchy, you know.
Oh my god. It's like when he gets stressed out, he has to make the situation infinitely worse.
Yes, yes. I mean, this is, didn't Arthur say to the butcher, did your daddy not teach you to tie good knots or something like that?
Yeah, oh my god. The amount of times Arthur just comes with the most out of pocket shit to say to people who have the upper hand over him. It just wild. But that's another point to the fact that this might be a trap. Because Arthur, I mean, he's stupid and he might actually mouth off to people when he doesn't have the upper hand. But I want to believe that this time he does.
Yeah, classic Arthur. Bring up daddy issues to psychos or draw 25 meme.
That's very good. Yeah, Hydra says he's goading her. It's a trap. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think most of the time Arthur goads people, it's for a good reason. But I also think he does just have a problem. He does just have some issues.
But it does seem like it might have worked, because I know a lot of people were speculating about Lilith's answer, or Lilith's response to that, being to poke and prod at Arthur about Vale's dying wish. And even before she says that, John says, for the first time her eyes flicker. I can't read the expression. And I find that interesting.
Yeah, I do too. I think that was another attempt kind of sort of with the butcher when they were faced off.
Yes.
And he was poking and prodding at all these vulnerabilities, trying to see which one got a rise. And I think that was another attempt at doing this. So very interesting. Now, I will just come out and say it. Surveil was very clearly describing Grinners.
Yes.
Terrifying concept. We all kind of knew when Everard was describing it way back when we thought he was evil, that this was a Grinner thing, and to hear Surveil get more in depth with it and reconfirm that was the issue. Very interesting. Also have to wonder how Arthur would deal with that, if John would be affected, if how does that work when you have a guy in your head?
Well, I found it really interesting. You know, we get this wonderfully gruesome description about their, lips being peeled back, carved away as the madness consumes them. But then Vale also mentions, and yet they are still themselves. And I know that the lore masters have explained to us that the Grinners are still, technically themselves, but driven by, their most base desires to the absolute extreme. But I just found it interesting that Surveil included, and yet they are still themselves.
Yeah, because I think it's less creepy if somebody just goes out of their mind nuts, because they're not themselves, and you can very easily distance what you know versus what they've become. And to retain your base personality and just amplify a part of it sounds traumatic in the worst way. It's not just like a mindless zombie thing.
Yeah, it's almost like your evil twin.
Yes, yeah.
With a big Joker grin.
Yeah, Grinners are just jokers. I don't know how to tell you. Nikki says, I think they'd each have to make their own will saves. Yeah, I guess they would. I don't know how either one of them would hold up, really.
It's another John versus Arthur vote. Sorry, y'all.
Oh my god, don't even joke. I don't know what we would do. Okay, do we want to move into the vote?
There's one last thing we have to talk about before the vote.
Okay.
Where's Yorick?
Yeah.
Where's the boy?
Where's Yorick?
We didn't hear from Yorick.
I'm pretty sure he was just being told to pipe the fuck down. I want to believe that that's what the case is, because it's normal that Arthur tries to not have him speak in moments of serious plot movement.
Yeah.
But it is creepy that, I mean, she knows that Yorick's there if he is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Square Becca says Yorick is on sabbatical. He must be on vacation with BJ. They're just having a little jaunt, little boys weekend.
Hey, there's a ship out there. There are people who have been talking about the Vanguard and Booth John. And the very small corner of the internet will be screaming to be acknowledged. But I know you. I've seen the dark heart of you. Alas, poor Yorick.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Okay. I am going to say that we should move on to the poll because...
We should.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's been rough.
The poll for this week was I did versus I did not. Right now, the poll stands at 340 votes total, and the ratio is currently 64% in favor of I did, and 36% in favor of I did not. And with the helpful use of the Patreon vote counter extension, we know that I did is 218 votes, where I did not is 122 votes. So pretty huge leap between. I know that I've seen some people in poll chat saying explicitly that they are voting for the loser just because they want the ratios to be what they call the golden 60-40, which is very funny because 60-40 means that there's the biggest potential for a flip. And it is kind of people feel safe enough that they may not look around, but people are also on edge enough that they may vote or debate to try and flip people. So
yeah,
60-40 is kind of where there's a large amount of us that have an agreement, but there's still enough people where it could flip. So I think, however, that this one is so hard to talk about without being shut down by somebody else in a decent way, not in a mean way, I doubt that we're going to flip. I think it's just going to be I did. But what was your take on this, Vol?
Well, when the poll first drops, I think I've said this before, oftentimes I have no gut reaction, and I just poke my head into poll chat and just see the chaos, see what's going on. And then after the first day, I'll go read over Slow Poll and kind of weigh both options. But, as I start reading Slow Poll, I realize kind of what the answer is in my heart, where I already am leaning. And I think that I was leaning towards I did not, because not only did I find it sort of the more interesting answer, given what little context we have, but also Arthur Lester, that baby can carry so much guilt, and it almost feels like character appropriate that he would fail yet again to do this thing, possibly with the intention of having wanted to do it. But that's the other thing is, like I said earlier, I'm not sure that he's had time to fulfill his dying wish. Like, it might not have been a want to versus didn't want to. It might have been was not able to in the time allotted, especially with Lilith maybe breathing down his neck or making things difficult or, tying his shoelaces together or whatever she's doing to hinder his progress.
Right. I definitely, I had a gut instinct. I had an after being in poll chat instinct. And then I had okay, what am I really going to vote for? So I really went back and forth several times, but I landed on I did, which would probably surprise you if you looked at poll chat because I was arguing really hard for I did not.
Yeah, you were. I did see that.
Yeah, the soft, squishy part of me that would play this game and pretends that I'm in control of Arthur would pick I did because I want to be that kind of person. I want to think that that's a good thing and that that's what you do. And, I want to think that, like, my character's gonna honor whatever it is, and how bad could it really be? But the very skeptical player in me who's voted in Malevolent before and been wrong and been right and been confused is still very strongly on the I did not side, because it just feels like such a trap for me to agree to something that I have no idea what it is. I hate that. I don't like agreeing to things I don't know anything about. And so it's really hard for me to reconcile, like, what I want to be the truth and what is the truth. And having to vote on it is so hard for me. I think this might be one of the hardest votes for me.
Yeah, and, we've talked about this before, that it's never, like, a given thing that Harlan is always going to sort of, pull the wool over our eyes and put forth what seems like an obvious answer, but actually you need to pick the
Yeah.
opposite. That's not always the case. And
Right.
so I think that that is one of the cruxes of the debate for this one, is whether or not we're making a choice for sort of Arthur's will, his loyalty, or if we're making a choice for Arthur's guilt or his inability to complete the task. Or, there's so many
Yeah.
factors.
Right. And it's been pointed out, I should mention that the way that this question is phrased, so the circumstances that we're in imply that the person dying in front of us is Antoine, not Vale, because Vale is already dead and Antoine is not dead yet. I mean, that's the assumption. Male pronouns means it's not Aaliyah. So we're assuming that this is something that Arthur would have been able to do or not do on the road, which means it couldn't be anything like a long-term covenant or an idea or something abstract. It would have to be something really like a yes or no question. So it
Yeah,
can't be anything crazy like never give up hope or don't give the black stone to Lilith or any of that. So
right.
I don't think it's anything like that. I do think, depending on what it is, it could still be bad. Just
Yeah.
because it's not related to a big overarching idea doesn't mean it couldn't be bad. And that is my biggest hesitation with agreeing, but I am voting agree. So I'll bite my own hand, I guess.
Some of my favorite nonsense from poll chat was people speculating unseriously about what his dying wish was. Like, Fish said he asked for a kiss goodnight. Or, my final wish, throw that nasty thing away, meaning Yorick. And that's why
Yeah,
Yorick's gone.
I had brought up the fact that, like, what if his last dying wish was to get rid of Yorick? He, like, didn't trust him. Something happened. Something was said. And he's like, go bury that skull in the ground or, I don't know, drown it or something. And, like, we're about to kill Yorick. I mean, it's as likely as any other theory. And that's the problem, is it was actually really hard for us to talk about this vote, from what I saw in the chat, because you really couldn't say no to most people's arguments.
Right.
There was no way to unequivocally prove or not prove that somebody's theory was more true than another, barring the whole concept of, like, it couldn't have been an abstract concept, it had to be completed on the road. So
Right.
it was really difficult to talk about this one, which is why poll chat has been kind of quiet for a few days.
Yeah, it was really exciting right out the gate, and then it sort of died because it was like, well, it's not like we suddenly found more context to go off of.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked the other one that Wanderer Fen, I think it was, in poll chat said, "What if Sir Vale asked Arthur to put him out of his misery, to kill him?"
Yeah.
And that I thought was interesting too, because that's one of the first things that I would think of as a last dying wish. Like, just finish me. I can't do this anymore. That could be a really good one.
And Arthur having to carry the guilt of another life on his hands, but ultimately it was his dying wish. Yeah, that's good. I'm here for Arthur's guilt. I am here for my favorite malevolent character, Arthur's guilt.
The other thing is that I want Arthur to stop. I guess that's the other thing that may be the difference between me and other listeners, is I would be fine if Arthur started not constantly feeling guilty about everything. I think he feels enough guilt.
He's making progress.
I feel like he feels enough guilt for a lot of things that he should feel guilt for, and I don't need him to take on one more thing. That being said, it would be totally like, it would totally fall in line with him and his character, and I would not be disappointed. I do think that Lilith understands how Arthur feels about everything to the depth that she does, because of the interaction with the nightmare and all of that.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
she understands that she's needling him about very specific hurts that she knows will get to him, because she's seen and felt what he has those feelings about. So she really has all the ammunition. She knows how to get to him.
I mean, Squarebecca points out that he has Mercy killed things before. But
Yes.
I think another interesting thought about what his dying wish might have been, Autumn mentions that he might have asked to not be revived by the talisman because we still have that, but it obviously hasn't been used. I guess we don't know if we still have that.
Yeah, we have no idea what happened in those 2 weeks. They could have nothing. That's the other thing. It's not just that the theories about what this dying wish could be, it's that the last like 2 weeks are a complete mystery to us. So we are
Yeah.
genuinely voting super blind right now.
We're literally creating these 2 weeks, and that is so exciting for me.
It's exciting and it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, sure.
I want to just point out really quick for public listeners, we see all the reactions to the chapters or the full part when they come out, and people making observations about why would you do this, or I can't
Sure.
believe this happened. And sometimes it happens to be a vote that is being commented on, and it's like, you don't understand. We didn't have the full part. We didn't know
Yeah.
this is how it would go.
Yeah, Mizra says it's such an awesome way to hit the highlights of the journey and build tension for the current confrontation with Lilith as we go back and see what leads up to it. And I completely agree. Super excited to be part of an interactive, non-linear story.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
rad.
it's very exciting. So I want to say it's so important, and this is why Malevolent Autopsy was made in part, a large part, because we are doing something that nobody can ever do again, and we have the benefit of a lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Like, most people would say that the more you know, the better you can do. But I think with Malevolent and the very specific way that we get to interact with it as voting patrons, we have the benefit of this adventure that feels like a community involved project that we're all building together in real time. And never more has it felt like that than I think these votes, where
Yeah.
we genuinely just have no idea what we're doing, and we're going to hit buttons, and hopefully we all agree and it goes right, but we don't know anything. Whereas everybody else who's listening to this and is not a patron will just hear the rest of the story, which is a fine and a totally great way to listen to Malevolent. It's just that we have such a unique privilege to be able to impact the story this way. And I think everyone's really feeling that excitement and that
Yeah.
adrenaline. But I do think that it's going to be very interesting to see if this whole part is just a conversation between Arthur and John and Lilith, and we're talking about the last 2 weeks, or if this is just a very short snippet of a part that is going to contain more, where we like open up more and more of the last couple of weeks through other conversations or other interactions, the way that we kind of did with when Arthur was recovering after dying, where we just don't really ever go back over some of that. Like, I'm sure there's going to be a large portion of these 2 weeks that we never get to know anything about.
Yes, I completely agree, but I do think that we are going to, like Mizra was saying, that we're going to get the highlights of the past 2 weeks in, I mean, I imagine 5 different scenes. I think that each chapter of this part is going to have a different flashback scene. That's what I foresee.
Interesting. And how many, I'm so fascinated by, I wish I could make sure Harlan was documenting the process. I know he's probably not, but like, I'm so fascinated to know how much is prepared right now. Like, how much of this is ready to go, because if we, depending on what we choose right now, this did or did not fulfill a person's last wish, that could be 2 lines are different in the next chapter. That could be 2 lines are different in the next chapter, but the whole next 3 or 4 parts are different because whatever we did is a deep impact. Or that could be like almost nothing is different. I don't know. And that's crazy.
What I think we are going to see for the rest of this part is, because Surveil is already dead. Like, that's already happened. So we are not deciding whether or not he lives or dies. He's already dead.
Right.
Alia said she was going to be the first to die. So we can safely assume she's already dead. If it's Antoine who's lying before us dying, then something has already happened to him to bring him this close to death. So what I foresee is, yes, our answer here is going to impact how Arthur feels, and possibly the consequences of fulfilling or not, fulfilling Sir Vale's dying wish. I think in the next chapter, we're going to have a vignette about what happened to Alia. And then I think in the next part, we're going to have a vignette about what happened to Antoine. And then we're in the end game of the part. And maybe there won't be any other flashback scenes, but that is what I foresee.
Yeah, I can see that. I also want to briefly I'm looking over the pull chat snippets that you wrote, and I really liked. Some people were asking about calling on Danny's mom, the Oracle.
I did want to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it would have been interesting to have her insight, but I also think, I don't know, maybe Danny might not be, I can't tell, but I think Danny may not be asking her mom about more votes because she's just would have to catch her up on so much.
Well, I did see what Danny had to say about this, and Danny said that yes, she had a lot she would have to catch up her mom on, but also that she felt like maybe the Oracle's time had passed because of the number of voters that we have and our ability or lack thereof to do big flip campaigns, because we don't have necessarily the numbers needed on the Patreon where Danny's mom, the Oracle's word, would have a great effect.
I mean, that's Danny's opinion. I still think we could. I'm very much on the side of the fact that, like, why wouldn't you get the opinion if you could use it? But at the same time, like, if I were Danny, I wouldn't want to do it. So, like, I totally get it. I feel like
we do need to give a little refresher for those who aren't in the know. Danny is a wonderful artist and longtime fan of Malevolent, and from shortly after she joined the Discord and the Patreon and was listening to the new chapters as they came out, she was filling her mom in on these and asking her about some of the trickier votes, some of the more difficult votes, and what she thought they should vote. And historically, Danny's mom has always been right and has always been, like, inside Harlan's head about his feelings about the vote and always picks correctly. So we occasionally have looked to the Oracle, this fan's mom, to weigh in on how we should vote. That's who Danny's mom is.
Yeah, it's very cute. I mean, there's a whole section on the wiki about her if you want to go look it up on the fandom Wikipedia. She is a very sweet woman. And from what I recall, her profession, I think the reason that she was consulted, I think, well, not just because she's Danny's mom, but because she's also a writer. So I think there was some consideration for, like, you know, how the narrative devices feel to a writer and how different it would be. But Harlan thinks it's great and thinks it's really fun that Danny's mom is always right. So
yeah,
we all were leaning on that a little bit back and forth when I first started being a patron with Vol. But
yeah, I feel like we've used it sparingly and only in times of need. But yeah, this was one that I would have been so interested to hear Danny's mom's take.
Yeah, that would be cool. I also want to mention, moving on from Danny's mom, Izzy in the chat, in poll chat, had said, Danny's right. The way she's asking, she already knows the answer. Either it's something Arthur morally should have done and did not, or it's something he really did not want to do and did. But either way, he is unhappy with his choice. And that's really what it comes down to, is that she already knows the answer. She just wants to twist the knife.
Yeah.
So I think, really, no matter what we pick, it's going to come back to bite Arthur in the ass. But yes, I do think it says something about his person either way. So I'm just excited to figure out what the fuck is going to happen next. I can't wait.
Yeah. Danny said something to that effect, and I completely agree with this. Danny said, we say yes, and Lilith's response is, liar, why are you lying? We say no, and her response is, cold-hearted favorite of mine, see how we can work together, work this out like professionals. We can't win Lilith's whims just like that. And I totally agree. I think this is one of those votes where, like, there is no right answer, but that also means there's no wrong answer. So there.
Exactly.
And right above that, I forgot that I made a note that some people were speculating about whether Vale's dying wish would be to make use of his corpse for food, since all the food's spoiled. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, I remember Fish swooping in like he wouldn't do that to John.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to have another Faust situation.
No, that was a one-time deal. I don't think Arthur would ever willingly eat people again.
The
What a
things you say as a Malevolent fan.
what a way to end the episode. Yeah, I think I'm excited to see what happens next, as always, and
Yes.
I am really hoping that our next vote actually gives us more to talk about. I will be
Yeah.
very sad if it doesn't.
You don't like these contextless votes.
I don't. I don't like the contextless votes because there's nothing to argue about.
Well, it reminds me about how you don't like vague endings. And this is
Yeah,
like a vague
oh
ending
my
to
God.
a chapter.
I hate vague endings. I need you to give me some concrete, like, even if it's not like, oh, the end of the story, I want you to give me some kind of closure.
Yeah.
And this is the opposite of that. So it's very hard for me when I don't have information. I guess the other thing is that for me, poll chat is not as fun when everybody can shout each other down over and over again. It's, oh, what if somebody, like, what if his last dying wish was to use the talisman on him? And then someone would say, well, that can't have possibly been right because, it couldn't
He
have.
wouldn't
Like,
have done that. And it's like, you don't know that.
Right. Well, you can't really, what do you do with that? So there hasn't been a lot to
Yeah.
talk about, and it makes me sad. But I'm still very excited about the story. It's just that element of the Malevolent experience right now is a little bit different. And I will adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. There is one last consideration when we are in a poll and we don't know what to do. We could go either way. You know what we got to ask ourselves.
What
What
would
would
Charlie
Charlie
do?
What would
What
Charlie
would
do?
Charlie do? And I'm glad you brought this up because I was trying to find a way to segue before the episode ended. I have to say, like, I brought it up that Charlie is a smart man. He's a clever boy. I think he's probably a better detective than Arthur. And I only think that because of how much more seasoned he is. That's not a commentary on how smart or not smart Arthur may be. I just think Charlie has done it longer and has seen more. I think that he has a very good heart because he's a good man and that he would have honored a man's last dying wish.
Yes.
However, I think he would be smart enough to know when not to. And so
Sure.
for me, this what would Charlie do didn't really help me because I could still see it going either way.
Autumn says, no, he would absolutely honor Vale's dying wish. He literally waited 2 years for Arthur because a frogman told him to.
That's totally different. Totally different. Completely different. That's not even on the same level as me because I'm sorry, but the frogman in question did him a huge favor and he owed that frogman. That is a completely different situation from a man's last dying wish, okay? Second of all, Charlie had a stake in waiting for Arthur because he really thought Roland was going to be in there. And so
Charlie
so
Roland.
yeah. And so there's no way in hell that you can even put those on the same level for me because Arthur, first of all, doesn't know Vale from Adam, okay? He just got on the scene. I don't want to start saying that Arthur would fucking throw down for Vale. The other thing is that there's no element of like third party here. It was just Arthur deciding whether or not to do something for this dying guy. I think in that circumstance, gut instinct would be, of course, Charlie's gonna fulfill a last dying wish. He's a loyal, good dude. Okay,
And a veteran. I feel like a guy's dying last wish
and a veteran.
is like, yeah.
Yes, that's very serious
shit.
for him. But I want to say right now, and everyone keeps missing this. The last dying request isn't guaranteed to just be like, oh, I want you to say my burial rites. It could be something super fucked up. And do you think Charlie would still do it? Like, you really have to think about the fact that this last dying wish is so vague. You need the context. You need to know what. Okay, Autumn, I don't need you to at me and say he has known Vale for longer than he knew Charlie. That was uncalled for. Look, and they went through some stuff that I know about. And I don't know what Vale and Arthur had to go through, but it was nowhere near as deep, serious, and intimately bonded as what Charlie and Arthur went through. They may have only known each other for a short time, but their bond was much, much deeper and more serious. Like, does Vale know about John? I highly doubt it. I highly fucking doubt it. There's absolutely, I'm sorry, that just doesn't, no. Okay, anyway, sorry.
We have gained a listener during the Charlie rant.
Anyway, so what I was saying was, you have to remember that this vote is so much more complicated than it seems, and I think Charlie and Arthur are so similar, like they're meant to be almost parallels, that I don't think it's really any different. I think sure. The way I feel about how Arthur should be acting is the same I would feel about Charlie, because I think they have a lot of the same qualities, and I think they are very in sync in terms of like loyalty and that emotional connection to something like a person's last dying wish. So if I were voting and I were thinking about Charlie, it would be the same as if I were thinking about Arthur. So that being said, I am still voting I did.
This is one of those votes that not even what would Charlie do can help us.
Not even what would Charlie do can help us. But I will say, I do think there is still promise for him to swoop in. Maybe this plan involves waiting for Charlie to show up. I'm just saying, it's as likely as anything else.
You know, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Maybe they met Charlie in the 2 weeks. Maybe they met Charlie in the 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm cutting you off there. I'm cutting you off there. We have to end this.
Okay, fine, okay.
But yeah, this week's vote has been tricky, and we'll just have to see what happens.
I can't believe I didn't think about that earlier. Oh my god. What if they did though? What if that's who they met and they're waiting for Charlie like to strike from the shadows right now? Maybe there was the fire was a signal for Charlie.
For Charlie, yes, of course, yes. Famously, the fire that has had literally anything to do with Charlie in this season.
I don't know. Maybe they lit the fire with the lighter, which is Furrow, but also a little bit of Charlie because the lighter came Roland's from the office.
Right.
It's because it's Roland's lighter, yeah. So you follow, you get it.
Yes, I completely. Unfortunately, I do. Between you and me, we can string together a way for Charlie to be there.
I will always string together a way. If Harlan is like, man, I miss writing Charlie into the story. I wish that I hadn't taken him out in season 4 and just not put him back in yet, because I'm definitely gonna, but I miss him and we should do it sooner. I will link him to like these snippets of the show and be like, look, I can give you any kind of convoluted plan to bring him back. I will help you craft this if you need it. Anyway.
Hydra's mentioned, what if we get Charlie in the dark world? So, Charlie,
don't
Parker, Roland, everybody comes back in the dark world.
Don't tease me. That hurts.
Oh, yeah, Graham, we do need to talk about Roland and Charlie in a segment at some point. I don't know where that's going to go, but yes.
We're going to have like a series that's just called the Charlie series where I come on and it's just me and I yell about Charlie.
Okay, shall we do our parting words?
Yes, I'm finally going to drag us out of this segment kicking and screaming. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I loved having this chat with you, and I'm really excited to see what happens next.
As am I.
Yeah, I think that we will be back here next week with the same, if not more, intense vigor.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, of course, to Harlan Guthrie, the sole creator of Malevolent. You can find everything official at linktree/Harlan Guthrie. Without his labor of love for a story he wants to tell, we wouldn't be here. And speaking of here, if you want to be part of the live vote chat I record each week, join the Invictus Patreon and connect your Discord account. We have our own private patrons-only autopsy channel. If you want to chat with me and maybe even some other folks you hear from on the show, you can also find a public autopsy channel from the Invictus Discord so you can hang out even if you're not a patron. While Malevolent Autopsy is my pride and joy, it wouldn't be ever improving without some key players. Thank you to Mizra, Nikki, and Volcontrol for their work editing and assisting with production. They do so much for the show, and they do it all as volunteers, and I couldn't be more grateful. To submit a voice recording, have your message read aloud on the show, or find us on other platforms, visit linktree/Malevolent Autopsy. Let's hear from one more Malevolent fan before we finish this week.
Hi there, this is Scotty. My pronouns are she, her, dude. When everything feels insurmountable, when life is filled with loss and grief, is something I desperately needed to hear. Arthur's hope sparked hope in my own heart and has carried me through some of the most difficult times in my life. I'm immensely grateful that it found me when it did.
I'm your host, Queen, and I'll see you next week. The horrors persist, but so do we.